Ambassador Kim Ji-woo stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber and felt the weight of 1,000 alien eyes upon her. The chamber was enormous, built to accommodate representatives from over 200 different species. Some floated in specialized atmosphere bubbles. Others rested on heated stones. A few existed as clouds of luminescent gas contained in force fields, but all of them were focused on her with an intensity that would have frightened most humans. Kim Ji-woo was not most humans. She stood straight in her dark blue diplomatic uniform, her hands clasped behind her back in a posture she had learned during 20 years of military service before becoming Earth's ambassador. Her black hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her face showed no emotion as the council members whispered and clicked and hummed to each other in hundreds of languages. Above her, projected in holographic light, images played on repeat, human warships firing on the Jakar Slaver fleet, explosions blooming in the darkness of space, debris scattering across the void. Not a single slaver ship remained intact. Earth forces had destroyed them all. Counselor Vexathon rose from his seat at the highest point of the chamber. He was a kill, one of the oldest and most respected species in the galaxy. His body resembled an upright walking lizard, covered in deep purple scales, with 4 arms and a crown of crystalline horns that marked his age and wisdom. The Cathal had been founding members of the Galactic Council 8,000 years ago. Their word carried more weight than almost any other species. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo of Earth. Vexathon's voice echoed through the chamber, translated instantly into every language by the Council's systems. You stand accused of unauthorized military action, violation of territorial sovereignty, and destruction of property without proper authorization. How does Earth respond to these charges? Kim met his gaze without flinching. Earth responds that we saved 317 children from torture and death. We consider that not a crime, but a moral imperative. A wave of sound rippled through the chamber. Clicks of disapproval from the insectoid Varix, concerned hoots from the aquatic Polith, angry hisses from several reptilian species who apparently sympathized with the Jakar. Vexathon raised one of his 4 hands for silence. The Council does not dispute that the Jakar fleet was engaged in illegal activities. Slavery is forbidden under galactic law. However, the proper procedure when discovering such activities is to document the violation, file a formal complaint with this Council, and wait for official investigators to handle the situation. These protocols exist for good reason, Ambassador. They prevent chaos. They prevent species from simply attacking each other whenever they claim moral justification. Kim felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice steady. The distress signals we received indicated that children were being tortured. Some were dying. The proper protocol would have taken months, possibly years. How many children would have died while we filed paperwork? A new voice spoke up. Counselor Zithra, a being that looked like a floating collection of tentacles surrounding a central nervous cluster. We understand human emotions run strong regarding offspring. Many species share this trait. But civilization requires restraint. It requires process. If every species acted on emotion whenever they encountered something they found distressing, the galaxy would descend into constant warfare. We did not act on emotion, Kim said firmly. We acted on principle. There is a difference. Vexathon's horns flickered with bioluminescent patterns that Kim had learned meant irritation. You destroyed 7 ships, Ambassador. You did not capture them. You did not preserve the crews for trial. You did not secure evidence for prosecution. You simply obliterated them. Why such excessive force? For the first time, Kim allowed emotion to show on her face. Her eyes went cold. Because they were torturing children, Counselor. Because when our boarding teams reached the first ship and found what was happening in the holding cells, our commander made a decision. No one who could do such things deserved the chance to escape justice through your legal procedures. The chamber erupted. At least 50 species began shouting at once. Some supported Kim's words. Many more condemned them. The Jakar delegation, a group of tall, gray-skinned beings with too many joints in their limbs, were screaming for Earth to be expelled from Council space entirely. Vexthon's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Order. This Council will have order. He waited until the chamber fell silent again before continuing. Ambassador Kim, I will overlook your inflammatory remarks about our legal system. You are young, and your species is new to galactic politics. You do not yet understand how things work. But you must understand this. Actions have consequences. He gestured with 2 hands, and new images appeared in the holographic display. Diagrams of Earth's orbital defense platforms, schematics of human warships, intelligence reports on Earth's military capabilities. Kim felt her blood run cold. The Council had been watching Earth far more closely than she had realized. Your species has been remarkably aggressive in developing military technology, Vexthon continued. In just 50 years since first contact, you have built a fleet that rivals species who have had spaceflight for thousands of years. This concerns many Council members. Some believe Earth poses a threat to galactic peace. This incident with the Jakar fleet has only reinforced those concerns. Kim wanted to argue that Earth had built those defenses because the galaxy had proven dangerous, because humanity had learned quickly that not all species were friendly, because being weak meant being prey. But she held her tongue and waited. Vexthon folded his forearms across his chest. Therefore, the Galactic Council has prepared a resolution regarding Earth. I will now present the terms which we expect Earth to accept within 1 rotation of your home planet, 24 of your hours. Kim felt her stomach sink, but she kept her face neutral. First, Vexthon announced, Earth must surrender its entire military fleet for immediate inspection and inventory. Council observers will examine every ship to ensure no treaty violations exist. This process will take approximately 5 of your years. Kim's hands clenched behind her back, but she remained silent. Second, Earth will accept permanent Council oversight of all military operations. No human military vessel will be permitted to leave your home system without prior Council approval. This will prevent future unauthorized actions, such as the Jakar incident. A cold fury began building in Kim's chest, but she forced it down. Third, Earth will pay reparations to the Jakar species for the destruction of their vessels. We acknowledge that the crews were engaged in criminal activity, but they still had rights under galactic law. Those rights were violated when you destroyed them without trial. The amount will be determined by Council arbitrators, but preliminary estimates suggest 500 billion credits. Kim's eyes widened slightly. That was nearly Earth's entire annual economic output. Fourth, and finally, Vexthon said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, Earth's application for full Council membership is rejected. Instead, Earth will be placed on probationary status for 50 years. During this time, humans will not be permitted to travel beyond a radius of 10 light-years from your home system without special permission. This will allow your species time to learn proper protocols and to demonstrate that you can be trusted to act responsibly. The chamber fell completely silent. Every being present waited to hear how Earth would respond. Some expected anger. Others anticipated desperate negotiation. A few hoped for immediate surrender. Kim Ji-woo took a long, slow breath. She thought about the children she had seen in the medical bay of the rescue ship. A small Vix larvae whose shell had been cracked open for study. A Polnith infant kept in a tank too small to move. A kill child no more than 5 years old, who had been taught to scream in 70 different languages because the slavers found it entertaining. She thought about Captain Park Min-jun, the commander who had given the order to destroy the slaver ships. He had looked at the reports from the boarding teams, read the descriptions of what they found, and said simply, "Make sure not a single one of those monsters survives." It was not an order given in anger, but in cold, absolute certainty that some actions put you beyond the reach of mercy. She thought about Dr. Choi Yeon-seo, the xenobiologist who had spent the last 3 months caring for the rescued children, learning their languages, understanding their traumas, helping them heal. Dr. Choi had sent a message to Kim just before this council session. Don't let them make you apologize for saving lives. Some things are worth more than politics. Kim raised her head and looked directly at Councillor Vexthon. When she spoke, her voice was clear and carried to every corner of the vast chamber. No. The single word seemed to echo in the sudden silence. Vexthon's horns flickered in confusion. I beg your pardon? No, Kim repeated. Earth rejects your resolution. All of it. Every single term. The chamber exploded into chaos once again. But Kim raised her voice and continued speaking. We will not surrender our fleet. We will not accept your oversight. We will not pay criminals for the crime of stopping their crimes, and we will not be imprisoned in our own system like misbehaving children. Vexthon's scales had turned a darker shade of purple, a sign of extreme agitation in Kethal physiology. Ambassador, I do not think you understand the situation. This is not a negotiation. The Council has made its decision. We expect Earth to comply. Then you will be disappointed, Kim said flatly. Because Earth's answer is final. We reject your demands completely. Counselor Zithra's tentacles writhed in agitation. But you must at least make a counteroffer. This is how the process works. We present terms. You present alternative terms. We negotiate until we reach a compromise. You cannot simply refuse without engaging in the diplomatic process. Kim felt a strange calm settle over her. She had spent months studying council history, reading thousands of cases and precedents. She understood now what Dr. Choi and Captain Park had known instinctively. The council was not prepared for someone who simply refused to play their game. Counselor Zithra, Earth is not interested in negotiating about whether we should apologize for saving children. There is nothing to negotiate. We did the right thing. We would do it again. If you cannot accept that, then we have nothing more to discuss. Vexthon leaned forward, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. You are making a grave mistake, Ambassador. The Galactic Council has existed for 8,000 years. We have brought order to a chaotic galaxy. We have prevented countless wars. We have created prosperity and peace for trillions of beings. We achieved all of this through process, through protocol, through mutual respect for the rules we all agree to follow. If you refuse to follow those rules, you will face consequences. What consequences? Kim asked calmly. Will you sanction us? We will trade with whoever wishes to trade with us, regardless of your permission. Will you isolate us? We are already isolated by your probationary demands. Will you send your military forces to attack Earth? The last question hung in the air like a threat. Vexthon's eyes narrowed. Kim continued, her voice steady and cold. If the Galactic Council chooses to send military forces against Earth for the crime of saving children from slavers, then we will defend ourselves, and the entire galaxy will see what you truly value. Is it the lives of innocents, or is it your precious protocols? She reached into her uniform and pulled out a small data chip. I am now transmitting a message to Earth and to every public communication channel in the galaxy. You cannot stop it. It is already broadcasting. On the holographic displays, a new image appeared. Kim Ji-woo, standing in front of Earth's blue and green surface, speaking directly to trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. People of the galaxy, her recorded voice said, I am Ambassador Kim Ji-woo of Earth. I stand before the Galactic Council, which has demanded that my species apologize for saving 317 children from torture and death. They demand we surrender our ability to defend ourselves and others. They demand we pay money to the species that enslaved and tortured innocents. They demand we accept punishment for doing what any moral being would do. The recording showed images from the rescue. Human soldiers gently carrying injured alien children. Dr. Choi Yonio treating wounds while tears ran down her face. Captain Park Min-jun holding a tiny Kethil child who clung to him and refused to let go. Earth's answer to the Council is simple. Kim's recorded voice continued. We will never apologize for saving children. We will never ask permission to do what is right. If there are children in danger anywhere in this galaxy, and we have the power to help them, we will help them. No law, no protocol, no threat will change this. This is not negotiable. This is who we are. The recording ended. Kim Ji-woo, standing in the council chamber, looked up at Vexthon and the assembled representatives of 200 species. You have our answer, counselors. Earth will not comply with your demands. We will continue to act according to our principles. If you choose to respond with force, we will defend ourselves. If you choose to work with us to actually stop the slave trade that you all know exists but pretend to ignore, then we will be happy to coordinate efforts. The choice is yours. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the shocked silence of the chamber. This session is not dismissed, Vexthon's voice boomed. Ambassador Kim, you cannot simply walk away from the council. Kim paused at the doorway and looked back over her shoulder. Counselor Vexthon, you can continue talking if you wish. But Earth has nothing more to say. We will be returning to our ship now. We have children to check on. They matter more than politics." And with that, Ambassador Kim Ju of Earth walked out of the Galactic Council chamber, leaving behind 8,000 years of diplomatic tradition in ruins. Captain Park Min-jun sat in the command chair of the ECS Inchan, Earth's newest and most advanced warship, and watched the tactical display with growing concern. 15 council vessels had taken up positions around the diplomatic station where Ambassador Kim had delivered Earth's response 6 hours ago. They were not in an attack formation, but they were definitely not friendly either. Captain Lieutenant Han Sora called from the communications station. "We are receiving multiple hails from the Council security forces. They are demanding that Ambassador Kim return to the Council chamber immediately." Park leaned back in his chair, his weathered face showing no emotion. He had spent 35 years in Earth's Navy, fighting pirates, stopping smugglers, and keeping humanity's small corner of the galaxy safe. He had learned long ago that showing weakness invited attack, while showing strength often prevented the need for violence. Informed them that Ambassador Kim is aboard this vessel and under the protection of Earth's military forces. She will not be returning to the Council chamber unless she chooses to do so of her own free will. Han hesitated. "Sir, they are threatening to board us." Ark's eyes went cold. Then informed them that any attempt to board an Earth military vessel without permission will be considered an act of war. "We will respond accordingly." He could see the worry on his crew's faces. The Incheon was a powerful ship, but it was alone. 15 council vessels surrounded them. If it came to a fight, the odds were not good. But Park had not risen to the rank of captain by making decisions based on fear. The tactical officer, NN Kim Tae-young, spoke up nervously. "Captain, we are outnumbered. Should we request reinforcements from Earth?" "Already done," Park replied. "But the nearest Earth vessels are 4 days away. If the Council wants a confrontation, it will happen long before our reinforcements arrive." He paused, then added, "Which is exactly why we cannot show weakness now. The moment they believe we will back down, we lose all leverage." The door to the bridge slid open, and Ambassador Kim Ji-woo entered, still wearing her formal diplomatic uniform. She looked calm, almost serene, despite the tension crackling through the air. "Captain Park," she said with a slight bow of respect. "Thank you for the extraction. I assume the Council is not happy with our departure." "That would be an understatement, Ambassador," Park replied with a thin smile. "They have 15 ships surrounding us and are threatening to board. I have informed them such an action would be considered an act of war." Kim nodded approvingly. "Good. They need to understand that Earth does not respond well to threats." She moved to stand beside his chair, looking at the tactical display. "Any word on how the rest of the galaxy is reacting to my broadcast?" Han looked up from her console, her young face showing a mix of excitement and concern. "Ambassador, the response has been overwhelming. The broadcast has been viewed over 8 trillion times in the last 6 hours. It is the most watched communication in galactic history." "And the reactions?" Kim asked. "Mixed, ma'am. Some species are calling it the most inspiring message they have ever heard. Others are calling it dangerous propaganda. Several governments have officially condemned Earth's actions. But," Han paused, pulling up a data stream, "there are also reports of protests on over 300 worlds. Citizens demanding to know why their governments are not doing more to stop the slave trade. Questions about why the Council has been so ineffective." Park watched as a slight smile crossed Kim's face. "So, we have lit a fire under them. More like set their entire political structure ablaze," Park observed. "Ambassador, I must ask, did you truly mean what you said in that broadcast that Earth will intervene anywhere, anytime, if children are in danger?" Kim met his eyes without hesitation. "Every word, Captain. Do you object?" Park thought about the children he had seen during the rescue operation, the small child who had grabbed onto his hand and refused to let go for 3 hours. The medical officer had finally convinced the child he was safe by letting him sit on Park's lap while they treated his injuries. Park could still feel the weight of that tiny body, could still remember the trembling that gradually stopped as the child realized the humans would not hurt him. "No, Ambassador," Park said quietly. "I do not object. I only wanted to understand if we are truly committed to this course, because what we are doing right now, refusing the Council's authority, is going to change everything. There is no going back from this. I know, Kim said, but some things are worth the cost, and I would rather live in a galaxy where children are protected than one where politics matter more than innocent lives. Before Park could respond, the proximity alarm blared. On the tactical display, 2 of the council vessels were moving into boarding positions. Captain, Ann Kim called out. The council ships are deploying boarding craft. Park's jaw tightened. Battle stations. Charge weapons. But do not lock on unless I give the order. Helm, prepare for evasive maneuvers. Communications, send one final warning. Tell them that if those boarding craft come within weapons range, we will consider it an attack and respond with lethal force. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Park could see the tension in their movements. They were well trained, but most of them had never been in a real combat situation. Fighting pirates was one thing. Engaging council security forces was something entirely different. Ambassador Kim placed a hand on his shoulder. Captain, I have an idea. May I use your communication system? Park gestured to the console. Be my guest, Ambassador. Kim activated the public broadcast channel, the same one she had used to transmit her message to the galaxy. Her voice, calm and clear, went out to every ship in the area and to anyone watching across the stars. This is Ambassador Kim Ji-woo of Earth broadcasting from the ECS-in. We are currently surrounded by 15 Galactic Council security vessels. These vessels are attempting to board our ship by force, presumably to detain me, and force Earth to comply with the Council's demands. I want to make several things very clear to everyone watching this. She paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. First, I am aboard this vessel of my own free will. I have not been kidnapped or coerced by Earth's military. I am here because I choose to be here, under the protection of brave men and women who understand the difference between right and wrong. Second, Earth's military has not threatened anyone. We have not fired on anyone. We have not blockaded any stations or planets. We have simply refused to surrender to unjust demands. If the Council chooses to attack us for this refusal, the entire galaxy will witness who truly values peace and who values control. Third, and most importantly, the children we rescued are currently aboard this vessel, receiving medical care. If the Council's forces attack us, they will be putting those children in danger once again. I want everyone watching to understand this. The same children the Council claims to care about will be at risk because the Council cares more about punishing Earth than about those children's safety. Kim's voice hardened. So I issue this challenge to Councillor Vexathon and all Council members. If you truly care about the laws you claim we violated, then prove it. Show the galaxy that you care about stopping the slave trade. Launch a real investigation. Arrest the Jakar officials who allowed slavers to operate from their territory. Do something meaningful instead of punishing the people who actually saved lives. She cut the transmission and looked at Park. That should buy us some time. They cannot attack us now without looking like they care more about politics than children's safety. Park had to admire her strategic thinking. Brilliant, Ambassador. But you have also painted us into a corner. If we back down now, we look weak. If they attack, we are in a fight we probably cannot win. Then I suppose we had better hope they are not stupid enough to attack, Kim replied. On the tactical display, the boarding craft stopped their approach. They held position just outside weapons range, clearly waiting for new orders. Park could imagine the chaos on the Council ships as they tried to figure out how to respond to Kim's broadcast. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then an hour. Then 2. The boarding craft remained in position, neither advancing nor retreating. The Council ships maintained their positions around the Inyan. It was a standoff, and neither side seemed willing to be the first to blink. Finally, after 3 hours, a communication came through. Not from the Council security forces, but from Councillor Vexthan himself. His image appeared on the main view screen, his purple scales darker than before, his crystalline horns pulsing with agitated bioluminescence. Ambassador Kim, Captain Park, the Galactic Council wishes to negotiate. Park saw the brief flash of surprise on Kim's face before she hid it. Vexthan had used the word negotiate, not demand or require. It was a significant shift in tone. Councillor Vexthan, Kim replied formally. Earth is willing to listen, but I must warn you that our position has not changed. We will not apologize for saving children, and we will not accept punishment for doing what was right. Vexthan's eyes closed briefly, a gesture of frustration among his people. Ambassador, you have put the Council in an impossible position. Your broadcast has been seen by trillions of beings. Protests are occurring on hundreds of worlds. Several Council members are facing demands from their own populations to explain why we are punishing Earth instead of addressing the slave trade. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a note of bitter resignation. You have made it politically impossible for us to enforce our resolution. That was rather the point, Kim said without sympathy. This is not how civilization is supposed to work. Vexthan's voice rose in frustration. For 8,000 years, the Council has maintained order through process and protocol. Species bring their disputes to us. We mediate. We find compromises. Everyone accepts the Council's authority because the alternative is chaos. But you simply refuse to participate in the system. Do you not see how dangerous this is? If every species follows your example, the Council becomes meaningless. Park spoke up for the first time. With respect, Counselor, perhaps the Council should consider why its system failed so badly that Earth felt the need to act outside it. We received distress signals from children being tortured. We looked at your protocols for responding to such situations. We calculated that following those protocols would take months at minimum, possibly years. How many children would have died while we waited for your committees to meet and your investigators to file reports? Vexthan's horns dimmed, a sign of deep thought among his people. You make a fair point, Captain. The Council's procedures were designed for resolving disputes between governments, not for handling emergencies. We have never considered that our own processes might be too slow to save lives. Then perhaps it is time to consider it, Kim said firmly. The galaxy is full of suffering, Counselor. Children being enslaved, pirates preying on merchant vessels, refugees dying in transit because no one will help them. Your Council could address all of these issues, but you are paralyzed by your own bureaucracy. You spend years debating while beings die. Earth is simply showing that there is another way, a way that ignores law and order, Vexthan said. But his voice lacked its earlier conviction. No, Kim corrected. A way that prioritizes moral law over legal procedure. There is a difference. Your laws say slavery is wrong. We enforce that law. Your procedures say we should have asked permission first. We say that some situations are too urgent for permission. Silence fell between them. Park watched Vexthan's face carefully, seeing the internal struggle playing out across his alien features. This was a being who had spent centuries believing in the Council system, who had dedicated his life to maintaining galactic order through diplomatic process. Everything Kim was saying challenged the foundation of his worldview. Finally, Vexthan spoke again. The Council cannot simply withdraw our resolution. Too many species have committed to it. Backing down would make us appear weak and undermine our authority even further. Then do not withdraw it, Kim said calmly. Keep your resolution. Enforce your sanctions if you must. But understand that Earth will ignore them. We will continue to trade with whoever wishes to trade with us. We will continue to respond to distress calls regardless of your permission. We will continue to protect the innocent regardless of your protocols. You can declare us outlaws if you wish, but we will not change our behavior. Park had to suppress a smile. Kim was offering Vexthan a way to save face. The Council could keep their resolution, could maintain the appearance of authority, but Earth would simply not care. It was a brilliant political move because it gave the Council nothing while making it look like a compromise. Vexthan seemed to realize this too. His scales flushed an even darker purple. You are impossible to negotiate with, Ambassador. No, Counselor, Kim replied. We are simply not negotiating about our principles. We are happy to negotiate about trade agreements, territorial boundaries, cultural exchanges, and 1,000 other topics. But we will not negotiate about whether children deserve to be saved. That is not a political question. The connection cut off abruptly. Park suspected Vexthan had ended the call in frustration, rather than continue a conversation he could not win. Well, Park said after a moment, that went better than I expected. We are not being boarded at least. Kim smiled slightly. They cannot board us without proving everything I said in my broadcast, and they know it. We have won this round, Captain, but the war is far from over. What do you think they will do next? Park asked. Kim looked at the tactical display at the 15 council ships still surrounding them. They will try to find a way to punish Earth without looking like they are punishing us for saving children. Economic sanctions, probably trade restrictions, political isolation. They will try to make Earth pay a price for our defiance, without making themselves look like villains. And what will we do? Exactly what I said we would do, Captain Kim replied. We will ignore them. We will continue to act according to our principles. And we will show the galaxy that the Council's authority only exists as long as people choose to obey it. She paused, then added quietly, and we will check on those children. Dr. Choi sent word that some of them are asking to see the soldiers who rescued them. Perhaps you should visit, Captain. I believe a certain young Keith has been asking about you. Park felt his expression soften. Yes, I think I will. As he stood to leave the bridge, he looked back at the tactical display one more time. The council ships were beginning to pull back one by one. They were retreating. Earth had faced down the might of the Galactic Council and won, not through superior firepower, but through moral clarity that the Council simply could not match. Park wondered what the galaxy would look like in a year, in 10 years, in 100 years. Earth had thrown a stone into still waters, and the ripples were spreading. Nothing would ever be the same. Dr. Choi Yono sat cross-legged on the floor of the medical bay, carefully applying healing gel to the cracked shell of a young Varric. The insectoid child, no more than a larvae, really made soft clicking sounds that her translation device interpreted as contentment. After 3 months of constant care, the young ones were finally beginning to understand that the humans would not hurt them. There we go, Choi said softly, in the child's own language, which she had spent countless hours learning. The medicine will help your shell grow back strong. Does it hurt less now? The larvae clicked affirmatively and curled closer to her. Choi felt tears prick her eyes, as they did every time one of the children showed trust. When the rescue teams had first brought them aboard, most had been too traumatized to allow anyone near them. Many had screamed at the sight of adults. Some had hurt themselves trying to escape. It had broken Choi's heart. Across the medical bay, she could see other members of her xenobiology team working with the other children. Nurse Yang Min-ho was playing a gentle game with 3 PN infants in their specialized water tanks. Dr. Lee Sunung-men was carefully removing the restraint scars from a young Kill's wrists, his hands moving with the precision that had made him one of Earth's finest surgeons. The door opened, and Choi looked up to see Captain Park Min-jun entering the medical bay. His military bearing softened immediately when he saw the children. Several of them looked up at his approach, and one small Kithril child, a boy named Krill, scrambled to his feet and ran toward the captain. "Captain Park," Krill called in his high musical voice. He crashed into Park's legs and wrapped his small arms around them in what humans would call a hug. Park knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the child. "Hello, Krill. How are you feeling today?" "Better," Krill said, though his common galactic was still rough. "Dr. Choi says my bones are healing well. She says in 1 more month I will be completely better." "That is wonderful news," Park said, placing a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. The gesture would have been threatening to an adult Keithal, but Krill leaned into it, seeking the contact. Choi stood, settling the Varric larvae into a comfortable nest before walking over to join them. "Captain, I did not expect you so soon. Is everything all right with the council situation?" Park's expression hardened slightly. "For now, they have backed down from immediate action, though I suspect we have not heard the last from them. But Ambassador Kim suggested I visit. She said some of the children were asking for the rescue teams." "They ask every day," Choi said quietly. "Especially Krill. He has nightmares sometimes, and the only thing that calms him is when we show him pictures of the soldiers who carried him off the slaver ship. He needs to see that you are real, that you are still here, that you will not abandon him." Something in Park's weathered face cracked slightly. He looked down at Krill, who was watching him with wide, trusting eyes. "I am not going anywhere, little one. You are safe now." "Promise?" Krill asked. "I promise," Park said firmly. Choi knew that promise meant more than Park realized. In Keith culture, promises were sacred bonds. By making that vow, Park had essentially adopted Krill in the child's eyes. She wondered if Park understood the weight of what he had just done, but looking at his face, she suspected he did, and had made the promise anyway. An alarm chimed from Choi's datapad. She checked it and frowned. I need to take this. It is a communication from the Galactic Council. She looked at Park. Would you mind staying with Krill for a few minutes? Not at all, Park said, settling onto the floor. Krill immediately climbed into his lap and Park wrapped his arms around the child protectively. Choi moved to her office and activated the secure communication channel. To her surprise, the face that appeared was not that of a council official, but of a kill woman, whose scales were a lighter purple than Vexton's, marked with the intricate patterns that denoted a high-ranking scientist. Dr. Choi Yonio, the woman asked, her common galactic carrying the formal tones of educated speech. Yes, I am Dr. Choi. How may I help you? The woman hesitated, then spoke quickly, as if afraid she might lose her nerve. My name is Dr. Velshaw. I am a xenopsychologist, attached to the Galactic Council's Cultural Studies Division. I am contacting you unofficially. What I am about to say could cost me my position. Choi felt her pulse quicken. I am listening, Dr. Vela. I have been reviewing the case files from the slaver incident. The official files, yes, but also other information. Information that the Council has been suppressing. Velshaw's voice dropped to almost a whisper. Dr. Choi, the slave trade is far worse than anyone publicly admits. The Jakar fleet you destroyed was not an isolated incident. There are dozens of such operations throughout Council space. Hundreds, perhaps. Choi felt cold. And the Council knows about this. Some Council members know, others suspect. Most choose to ignore it because investigating would be politically inconvenient. The species involved in the slave trade have significant political power. Accusing them openly would destabilize the Council. Velshaw paused, her expression pained. I have spent my entire career believing the Council represented the best of galactic civilization. I am only now realizing how much we have failed. Why are you telling me this? Choi asked. Because I watched Ambassador Kim's broadcast. I saw the images of the children you rescued. One of them was Keith. Velshaw's voice broke slightly. Dr. Choi, I have spent years studying trauma in children of various species. The damage I saw in those images. No child should ever experience such things. And to know that my government, my council, has been allowing this to continue because it is politically easier than confronting it. She collected herself. I am contacting you because I want to help. I have access to council databases. I can provide you with information about slave trade operations, locations, routes, species involved. Choi's mind raced. This could be exactly what Earth needed, but it could also be a trap. Dr. Velsha, if you are discovered providing this information, what will happen to you? I will likely be arrested for treason. My career will be destroyed. I may be exiled from Keith space. Shaw met Choi's eyes through the screen, but I am willing to accept that risk. Some things matter more than career or politics. I believe your Ambassador Kim said something similar. Choi made a decision. Dr. Velshaw, transmit whatever information you have to this secure channel. Earth will use it to save as many children as we can. And thank you. What you are doing takes great courage. Velia bowed her head in the Keith gesture of respect. No, Dr. Choi. You humans are the ones showing courage. I am simply finally doing what I should have done years ago. She paused. I should warn you, there will be others in the Council who contact you. Not everyone agrees with Vexton's approach. Many of us are inspired by Earth's willingness to act on principle rather than politics, but we are also afraid of what might happen if we speak openly. I understand, Choi said. Fear is a powerful force, but so is doing what is right, even when it is difficult. The transmission ended. Choi sat for a long moment, processing what she had just learned. Then she activated her communication to Ambassador Kim and Captain Park, uploading the data Vela had sent and explaining the conversation. When she returned to the medical bay, she found Park still sitting on the floor with Krill asleep in his arms. The captain looked up at her approach, his expression questioning. We may have just gained an ally in the Council, Choi said quietly, not wanting to wake the sleeping child. And we have learned that the problem is far bigger than we thought. Park's jaw tightened. How much bigger? Hundreds of slave operations throughout Council space being ignored because investigating them would be politically inconvenient. For a long moment, Park said nothing. He looked down at the child, sleeping trustingly in his arms, then back up at Choi. Then I suppose we will have to make it politically impossible for them to continue ignoring it. Over the next 3 days, the situation in council space became increasingly chaotic. Ambassador Kim released portions of Dr. Velshaw's data to the public, carefully protecting the source, but making the information available for anyone to verify. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Slave operations were being conducted under the protection of multiple council member species. Ships were being registered under false documentation. Official investigations were being deliberately delayed or misdirected. The response was explosive. On over 500 worlds, citizens took to the streets demanding answers. Why had their governments allowed this to continue? Why had the council, which claimed to represent law and justice, been protecting criminals? Why were they punishing Earth for stopping slavers, instead of investigating the slave trade itself? Several species began withdrawing their support for the resolution against Earth. They could not justify punishing humanity. While the evidence of council corruption spread across every news network in the galaxy, political careers ended overnight, as officials who had been connected to the slave trade were exposed. Councillor Vexthon called for an emergency session, but found himself unable to maintain order. For the first time in 8,000 years, the Galactic Council could not reach consensus. Some species demanded immediate investigation. Others tried to downplay the evidence. A few attempted to blame Earth for creating instability by releasing the information. Ambassador Kim watched the chaos from the ECS engine with satisfaction. She knew that change was painful, that the Council would resist as long as possible, but the truth was now public. The galaxy could not unknow what it had learned. Her communication console chimed. It was a message from an unexpected source. Counselor Zithra, the tentacled being who had criticized Earth's emotional response, was requesting a private conversation. Kim accepted the call, curious what the counselor wanted. Zithra's tentacles were wrapped tightly around their central body, a sign of stress. Ambassador Kim, I owe you an apology. Kim raised an eyebrow. That is not what I expected to hear from you, counselor. I have spent 2 centuries serving on the council, Zithra said quietly. I believed in our system. I thought that process and protocol were the foundation of civilization. I criticized your species for acting on emotion rather than reason. The tentacles loosened slightly, but I have been reviewing the evidence you released. I cannot deny it, and I cannot excuse my own willful blindness. I knew the slave trade existed. We all knew, but it was easier to ignore it, to pretend our procedures would eventually address it, than to confront the uncomfortable truth that our system was protecting the guilty. Why are you telling me this? Kim asked. Because I want you to understand that not all council members oppose Earth. Some of us are beginning to see that your approach, while disruptive, may be necessary. Our system has become so focused on maintaining order that we have forgotten what that order was supposed to protect. Zithra paused. I am not asking for forgiveness. What we have allowed to happen is unforgivable, but I am asking for a chance to help make things right. Several other council members feel the same way. We want to form a coalition to investigate the slave trade seriously, to hold the guilty accountable, and to reform the council's procedures so this can never happen again. Kim considered carefully. Counselor Zithra, Earth does not want to destroy the Galactic Council. We simply want it to live up to its own stated ideals. If you and others are truly committed to reform, we will support those efforts, but we will not soften our position. Children's safety is not negotiable. I would not expect you to, Zithra replied. And truthfully, I hope you do not. The galaxy needs species willing to hold the line on principles. We have become too comfortable with compromise. After the call ended, Kim sat back in her chair and allowed herself a small smile. The council was fracturing, yes, but from that fracture might grow something better. Species were being forced to choose between the comfort of old systems and the difficulty of doing what was right. She thought about what Captain Park had said. There was no going back from this. Earth had challenged the foundation of galactic politics, and the consequences would ripple outward for generations. But when she thought about Krill and the other children sleeping safely in the medical bay, she knew it was worth it. Some things were worth any cost, any sacrifice, any amount of political chaos. The galaxy was changing. Earth had made sure of that. And whatever came next, Humanity would face it with the same principle that had guided them from the beginning. Protect the innocent, no matter the cost. The Galactic Council Chamber had never been so full. Every seat was occupied. Every viewing platform crowded with representatives desperate to witness what was being called the most important session in Council history. Councillor Vexthon stood at his podium, his crystalline horns dim with exhaustion. He had not slept in 4 days, spending every moment trying to hold together a coalition that was crumbling beneath his feet. Below him, in the testimony platform usually reserved for diplomatic witnesses, stood a small Keel child. Krill wore simple clothes provided by Dr. Choi, and his scales showed the healthy shine of proper nutrition and care. But the scars on his wrists, where restraints had cut into his flesh, were still visible. He had refused to let the doctors remove them completely. He said he wanted people to see what had been done to him. Beside Krill stood Dr. Choi Yonyo, one hand resting gently on the child's shoulder for comfort. On Krill's other side was Captain Park Min-jun, in full military uniform, standing at parade rest like an honor guard. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo had arranged this testimony over Vexathon's strenuous objections. She had broadcast the invitation across the galaxy. If the council refused to hear from the children they claimed to care about, everyone would know. Vexathon had no choice but to allow it, though doing so meant losing even more control over the proceedings. Vexathon's voice echoed through the chamber. The council recognizes the witness, Child Krill of the Kathiel people. You have been brought here to provide testimony about your experiences aboard the Jakar Slaver vessel. We understand this may be difficult, but the council needs to hear your account. Krill looked up at Dr. Choi, who nodded encouragingly. The child took a deep breath, then began to speak in clear, common Galactic, his young voice carrying through the chamber's amplification system. My name is Krill. I am 6 years old. I was taken from my family's transport ship when I was 5. The Jakar took me and my mother. They killed my mother in front of me because she fought them. They told me that fighting back meant dying, so I should be obedient. A wave of shocked sounds rippled through the chamber. Krill continued, his voice steady despite the tears forming in his eyes. They kept me in a small cage. There were other children in other cages. Some were my age, some were younger. The Jakar heard us. They said they were testing our pain tolerance for their buyers. They wanted to know how much each species could endure before breaking. Krill's voice wavered, but did not stop. I learned to scream in 70 languages because they thought it was funny. They would hurt me and make me scream hello in different ways. They called it education. Dr. Choi tightened her grip on Krill's shoulder, providing silent support. Tears were streaming down her face, but she made no sound. I thought I would die there, Krill said quietly. I wanted to die. Death seemed better than another day in that place. Then I heard different sounds, loud sounds, explosions. The Jakar were screaming and running. I was so scared. I thought maybe the ship was breaking. Maybe we would all die in space. He looked up at Captain Park. Then I heard a voice speaking Keith. Not very good Keith, with a strange accent, but Keith. The voice said, "We are here to help. You are safe now." I did not believe it. I thought it was a trick. But then the cage door opened, and I saw a human soldier. She was crying. She looked at me and said, "I am so sorry we did not come sooner." Krill's voice broke. Captain Park knelt down beside him, placing a hand on the child's other shoulder. Krill looked at him and continued. Captain Park carried me out of that ship. I was too weak to walk. He wrapped me in a warm blanket and held me while his soldiers secured the area. I was so scared of being put down, of being left alone again. But he did not put me down. He carried me all the way to the human ship, and even then, he stayed with me while Dr. Choi checked my injuries. He promised me I was safe. He promised no one would hurt me again. The child turned to face Counselor Vexthon directly. "Counselor, why are you angry at the humans? They saved me. They saved all of us. Without them, I would be dead, or worse." The Jakar were council species. They operated in council space. They had been doing this for years. Where was the council when I was being tortured? Where were you when my mother died? The silence in the chamber was absolute. Vexathon's horns had gone completely dark, a sign of shame in his species. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Krill's voice grew stronger. Ambassador Kim said that Earth will never apologize for saving children. I want to know why you think they should apologize. I want to know why you are punishing the people who saved my life, instead of punishing the people who destroyed it. Can you explain this to me, counselor? Because I am only a child and I do not understand. Vex then finally found his voice, though it was rough with emotion. Child Krill, the council did not know the extent of the slave trade. We failed you. We failed all of you. You knew, Krill said simply. Maybe you did not know about me specifically, but you knew slavery was happening. Dr. Velshaw told Dr. Choi that the council has known for years. You chose not to look because it was too difficult, too politically complicated. You chose your comfort over our lives. The truth of those words hit the chamber like a physical blow. Representatives shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away in shame. Others stared at Krill in horror, seeing their own failures reflected in the eyes of this wounded child. I am alive because humans chose differently, Krill continued. They chose to act instead of waiting. They chose to save us instead of following your procedures. And now you want to punish them for that choice. You want to take away their ships, their freedom, their ability to help others like me. The child's voice rose with passion. I do not accept this. I am Keithal. I am a citizen of a council species, and I say that Earth should be honored, not punished. If this council cannot see that, then there is something very wrong with this council. Krill's speech ended. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then slowly, a sound began to build. It started with a single representative, a PN delegate, who began the deep humming that was their species' way of showing approval. Others joined in. Different species, different sounds, but all expressing the same sentiment: support, agreement, shame at what their council had allowed. Within minutes, more than half the chamber was making sounds of approval. The remaining representatives sat in uncomfortable silence, unable to argue against a child who had stated simple, undeniable truths. Counselor Vex then raised one hand for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke directly to Krill. Child Krill, you have shown more wisdom and courage than most of this council. You have shamed us, rightfully so. I do not know how to respond to your question. You are correct. Everything you said is correct, and that is perhaps the most painful thing I have ever had to acknowledge. He turned to address the full chamber. I have served on this council for 300 years. I believed in our system. I dedicated my life to maintaining order and peace through diplomatic process. But this child has revealed what I should have seen long ago. We have become so focused on maintaining our system that we forgot what the system was meant to protect. We created rules to prevent chaos, but those rules have prevented justice as well. Vexthon's horns began to glow again, but with a different pattern, one that conveyed determination. I propose an immediate motion. First, all resolutions against Earth are withdrawn permanently. Second, this council will launch a full investigation into the slave trade with unrestricted authority and transparent reporting. Third, we will reform our emergency response protocols to allow immediate action when lives are at stake, rather than requiring months of deliberation. A Jakar representative jumped to his feet. Counselor Vexthan, you cannot simply overturn our resolution. The procedures require. I do not care what the procedures require. Vexthan's voice thundered through the chamber. A child just asked me to explain why we are punishing his rescuers, and I had no answer. I will not sit here and debate procedures while the evidence of our failure stands before us. This vote will happen now, or I will resign my position and make very clear to the entire galaxy why I am doing so. The threat was clear. If Vexthon resigned over this issue, it would destroy what little credibility the council still had. Species that had been wavering would withdraw entirely. The council would collapse. The Jakar representative sat down, defeated. All in favor of withdrawing all resolutions against Earth, Vexthon called. More than 3/4 of the chamber signaled approval. The remaining representatives abstained rather than vote against such a clearly popular motion. All in favor of launching an unrestricted investigation into the slave trade. Nearly unanimous approval. Even the Jakar delegation voted in favor, knowing that opposing the motion would be political suicide. All in favor of reforming our emergency response protocols. Unanimous approval. Vexthon nodded slowly. The motions are passed. Ambassador Kim, If you are listening to this broadcast, please know that the Galactic Council has withdrawn all demands against Earth. We owe your species a debt that can never be repaid. From the viewing gallery where she had been watching, Ambassador Kim Ju stood and walked to the speaker's platform. The council guards, who would normally have stopped her, stepped aside. Kim looked at Vexthan, then at Krill, then at the assembled representatives. Counselor Vexthan, Earth did not save those children to earn political favors or to force the council to change. We did it because it was the right thing to do. That is all. However, we appreciate that the council is finally taking meaningful action. We look forward to cooperating with your investigation and helping to reform the systems that allowed such atrocities to occur. She paused, letting her next words carry weight. But let me be very clear. Earth's position has not changed. We will continue to act on our principles. If we encounter children in danger, we will save them. If we find slavers, we will stop them. If we discover injustice, we will fight it. We will do these things regardless of whether we have permission, because some things are more important than politics. We will coordinate with the council when possible. We will share information freely. We will support reform efforts genuinely. But we will not ask permission to do what is right. If the council can accept that, then we can work together. If not, then we will continue anyway. A representative from a species Kim did not recognize stood up. Ambassador Kim, does Earth truly believe that any single species has the right to decide what is just and unjust without consulting others? Is that not the path to tyranny? Kim smiled slightly. That is an excellent question, and the answer is no. We do not believe that. Earth does not claim the right to impose our values on others. We do not demand that other species follow our example, but we also do not need the galaxy's permission to live according to our own principles. If other species disagree with our actions, they are free to do so. If they wish to debate whether children should be saved or whether slavers should be stopped, they are welcome to have those debates. But Earth will not wait for the debate to conclude before acting. Another representative spoke up. But what if you are wrong? What if your intervention causes more harm than good? Then we will own that mistake and learn from it, Kim replied. But doing nothing while children suffer is not an option. We would rather risk being wrong while trying to help than be complicit through inaction. Krill stepped forward again, looking up at the representative who had questioned Kim. I can answer your question too. The humans were not wrong. They saved my life. They saved 316 other lives. If you think that was wrong, then I do not understand what right means to you. The representative had no response to that. Dr. Cho Yon-seo spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the calm authority of someone who had spent months caring for traumatized children. Honorable Council members, I have treated the children rescued from the Jakar fleet. I have seen their physical wounds and their psychological scars. I have held them when they wake screaming from nightmares. I have taught them that not all adults will hurt them. This process will take years, perhaps decades. Some of these children will carry their trauma for the rest of their lives. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of species. When you debate about protocols and procedures, please remember that every day of delay has a real cost. Every hour that a child spends in the hands of slavers creates damage that may never fully heal. Earth chose to pay the political cost of acting without permission because we believed that cost was worth it to prevent even one more day of suffering. I believe we were right. I would make the same choice again. Captain Park spoke last, his military bearing somehow both intimidating and reassuring. The men and women under my command are prepared to face the consequences of our actions. We knew when we destroyed that slaver fleet that there would be political repercussions. We accepted that because every single one of us agreed that some things are worth more than our careers, our reputations, or even our lives. The safety of innocent children is one of those things. If the council wants to condemn us for believing that, so be it. We will wear that condemnation with pride. Vexthon looked at the four of them, Human and Keith, standing together, and something in his ancient eyes changed. I do not think the council will be condemning anyone today. Instead, I think we have much to learn from Earth, and much to be ashamed of in ourselves. He turned to the full chamber. This session is adjourned. We have much work to do. 6 months had passed since Krill's testimony before the Galactic Council. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo stood on the observation deck of the ECS Incheon, watching ships from dozens of species arriving at what was being called the first summit of independent action. It was not an official council event, though many council species were participating. It was something new, something the galaxy had not seen before. Beside her, Captain Park Min-jun reviewed the security arrangements on his datapad. Old habits died hard, and even though this was supposed to be a peaceful gathering, Park insisted on treating it like a potential combat situation. Kim appreciated his caution. The galaxy was changing rapidly, and not everyone was happy about it. 12 species have withdrawn from the council completely, Park noted, reading from his reports. Another 37 are threatening to withdraw if reforms are not implemented faster. The council has fractured into at least 4 major factions, each with different visions for the future. Chaos, Kim said, though she did not sound particularly upset about it. Creative chaos, Park corrected with a slight smile. Something new is being born. It is messy, but perhaps that is necessary. The door opened, and Dr. Cho Yono entered with Krill walking beside her. The young Keithal had grown noticeably in 6 months. He was healthier, stronger, and his scales shone with the vibrant color of youth. But more importantly, he smiled now. He laughed. He played with the other children in the medical bay like any normal child should. Ambassador Kim, Krill called out, running to her with the enthusiasm only a child could manage. Did you see? My birth clan sent a message. They want to meet me. Kim knelt down to his level, smiling warmly. I saw they are arriving tomorrow. Are you nervous? Krill's expression became complicated. A little. I do not remember them well. I was very young when I was taken. But Dr. Choi says they have been searching for me ever since. They never gave up hope. Your mother would be proud of you, Kim said gently. You were very brave in the council chamber. Krill's eyes dimmed slightly at the mention of his mother, but he nodded. Dr. Choi says, my mother died protecting me. She says, that is the greatest love. I think I understand now. Captain Park protects me the same way, and you protect all of us. Kim felt emotion catch in her throat. She glanced at Park, who was studiously looking at his datapad to hide his own reaction. We do our best, Krill. That is all anyone can do. Dr. Choi placed a hand on Krill's shoulder. Come on, little one. You need to rest before tomorrow's reunion. It will be a big day. As they left, Kim stood and returned to watching the arriving ships. Park joined her at the window. The child is right, you know, Park said quietly. You have protected them. Not just the ones we rescued, but children across the galaxy. The Council's investigation has already shut down 43 slave operations. They have rescued over 2,000 children. That would not have happened without you forcing the issue. Without us, Kim corrected. This was never about one person. It was about humanity, choosing to act when action was needed. A communication alert chimed. Kim activated the screen to see Counselor Vexathon's face. The old Keith looked tired, but somehow lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted from him. Ambassador Kim, he said formally, I wanted to inform you personally that the Council has completed the first phase of our internal reforms. We have created an emergency response division with the authority to act immediately when lives are at stake. We have also established an anti-slavery task force with full investigative powers and military support. That is excellent news, Counselor, Kim replied. Earth stands ready to share our intelligence and coordinate operations. We would appreciate that, Vexthon said. Then he paused, his horns pulsing with what Kim had learned was uncertainty. Ambassador, I must ask, do you ever regret what you did? The confrontation with the Council, the chaos that followed. Kim considered the question carefully. Counselor, I regret that it was necessary. I regret that children had to suffer before the galaxy took action. I regret that good people like Dr. Vela had to risk their careers to do what should have been done openly. But do I regret forcing the issue? No, some things are worth the chaos they create. Vexthon nodded slowly. I am beginning to understand that. For centuries, I believed that order was the highest virtue, stability above all else. But order that protects injustice is not virtue. It is cowardice, dressed in diplomatic language. His horns brightened. Thank you, Ambassador. for showing an old fool that there is still time to learn. After the transmission ended, Park chuckled. You have changed him. I never thought I would hear a council leader admit to being wrong. He changed himself, Kim said. We just gave him a reason to do so, and he is not alone. There are good people throughout the council who wanted to do the right thing, but felt trapped by the system. Now that the system is breaking, they are free to act on their principles. Over the next 2 days, the Summit of Independent Action brought together representatives from nearly 100 species. Some were council members seeking to reform the system from within. Others were independents who had never joined the council in the first place. A few were former council species who had withdrawn in protest. What united them all was a simple principle: action over bureaucracy when lives were at stake. The summit did not create a new galactic government. Instead, it established a network of cooperation agreements. Species would share information about threats like slavery, piracy, and exploitation. They would coordinate responses to emergencies. They would provide mutual defense against aggression. But there would be no central authority, no complex bureaucracy, no years of debate before action. Ambassador Kim gave a speech on the 3rd day of the summit. She stood before delegates from dozens of worlds and spoke simply. Earth does not want to lead this movement. We do not want to impose our values on others. What we want is very simple: a galaxy where children are safe, where the weak are protected, where doing the right thing does not require permission from distant bureaucrats. Some of you have asked if Earth is trying to replace the Galactic Council. The answer is no. The Council serves a purpose for those who want structured diplomacy and formal protocols. We respect that. But Earth has shown that there is another way, a way based on principle rather than procedure, a way that prioritizes action over endless debate. This summit is not about destroying what exists. It is about creating alternatives. Some species will prefer the Council's approach. Others will prefer faster, more direct action. Both can exist. The galaxy is large enough for multiple approaches to coexistence. But let me be very clear about one thing. Earth will never apologize for saving lives. We will never ask permission to protect the innocent. We will never wait for committee approval when children are in danger. This is not negotiable. This is who we are. The response was overwhelming. Species after species stood to pledge cooperation with Earth's network. Some did so enthusiastically, others more cautiously, but all of them acknowledged that something fundamental had shifted in galactic politics. The Galactic Council still existed, but its authority had been permanently diminished. It no longer spoke for the galaxy. It spoke for those species who chose to participate in its systems. And every day, more species were choosing alternatives. On the final day of the summit, a ceremony was held to honor the children who had been rescued. 317 children, now healthy and recovering, stood together on a stage built specially for the occasion. Some had been reunited with their families. Others, like Krill, had found new families among the humans who saved them. Krill stood at the front, flanked by Captain Park and Dr. Choi. His birth clan had arrived the day before, and the reunion had been emotional. But Krill had made a request that surprised everyone. He wanted to live with both his birth clan and his human family. He wanted to be a bridge between Keith and human cultures. His clan had agreed, seeing the wisdom in allowing the child to maintain the bonds he had formed during his recovery. Dr. Choi would continue to care for him part of the year, while his clan would teach him Keith traditions the rest of the time. It was an unusual arrangement, but it felt right. Krill stepped forward to speak, his young voice carrying across the assembled delegates through the translation systems. 6 months ago, I was in a cage. I was scared and hurt and wanted to die. Today, I stand here because humans chose to act. Not because it was easy, not because it was politically convenient, but because it was right. Many of you have thanked Earth for what they did, but I think you should do more than thank them. I think you should learn from them. Earth showed us that principles matter more than politics, that children's lives matter more than diplomatic procedures, that doing the right thing is worth any cost. I am just one child, but there are billions of children in this galaxy. Each one deserves to be safe. Each one deserves to be protected. Earth has promised to help any child who needs it. Will you make the same promise? Will you choose action over debate? Will you choose courage over comfort? The young Kill looked out at the assembled delegates with eyes far too old for his age. I hope you will, because somewhere in this galaxy right now, there is a child in a cage. A child who is scared and hurt and losing hope. That child does not need your committees or your protocols. That child needs someone to act, to save them, to tell them they matter. Be that someone, please. Be the humans for someone else. Krill's speech ended. The silence that followed was not empty, but full of emotion. Then, one by one, delegates began to stand, not in protest, but in commitment. They stood and placed their hands, paws, tentacles, or appendages over their hearts in a universal gesture of oath-taking. "We will," a Varix delegate said. "We will," echoed a Polith representative. "We will," promised a being from a species Kim did not even recognize. Within minutes, every delegate in the hall was standing, pledging to act when action was needed, to protect when protection was required, to choose principle over politics. Ambassador Kim Ji-woo watched it happen and felt tears sliding down her cheeks. This was what Earth had fought for. Not domination, not control, simply the acknowledgement that some things mattered more than politics. Captain Park stood beside her, his usual stoic expression cracking slightly. "We did it," he said quietly. "We actually changed things. We started the change," Kim corrected. "The rest will take generations. There will be setbacks. There will be species who resist. But the seed has been planted. The galaxy will never go back to the way it was." Dr. Choi joined them, wiping tears from her own eyes. "Do you think it will last? This commitment to action over bureaucracy?" "Some of it will," Kim said thoughtfully. "Some species will backslide into old habits. But enough will remember. Enough will act. And each time someone chooses to save a child instead of filing paperwork first, they will prove that Earth's way works." That evening, a private celebration was held aboard the Incheon. The crew gathered in the mess hall along with Dr. Choi's medical team and the children they had rescued. It was not a formal event, just people who had been through hell together, sharing a meal and celebrating survival. Krill sat on Captain Park's lap, eating human food he had developed a taste for. The captain had long since stopped being surprised when the child climbed onto him. It had become routine, comforting even. "Captain Park," Krill asked between bites, "when I grow up, can I join Earth's military? I want to help rescue children like you did." Park looked down at the child, at the scars on his wrists, and the determination in his eyes. "Krill, you can be whatever you want to be, but you do not have to be a soldier to help people. Dr. Choi saves lives every day without carrying a weapon. Ambassador Kim changes the galaxy with words instead of guns. There are many ways to protect others, but I want to be like you," Krill insisted. "You are the bravest person I know." Park felt his throat tighten. "I was just doing my duty, little one. Any soldier would have done the same." "No," Krill said firmly. "Not any soldier. You did not just follow orders. You cared when you carried me. I could feel that you were angry. Not at me, but at the people who hurt me. You wanted to protect me. That is not duty. That is love." Dr. Choi, sitting nearby, smiled through fresh tears. "He is right. You know, all of you showed that you cared. That is what made the difference. Not your weapons or your ships, but the fact that you genuinely wanted to save us." Ambassador Kim raised her glass. "To caring enough to act, to choosing courage over comfort, to protecting those who cannot protect themselves, and to the children who reminded us why any of this matters." "To the children," the crew echoed, raising their own glasses. The celebration continued late into the night. Stories were shared, laughter rang out, and for a few hours, the weight of galactic politics fell away. They were just people, taking a moment to appreciate what they had accomplished together. Later, as the party wound down, Kim stood once again at the observation window. The stars spread out before her in infinite array, each one potentially home to billions of lives. Somewhere out there, children were suffering. But now, because of what Earth had started, more people were willing to help them. The door opened, and Park joined her at the window. They stood in comfortable silence for a long moment before Park spoke. "Do you think we will be remembered years from now, when historians look back at this moment?" Kim smiled slightly. I do not care about being remembered, Captain. I care that children will be safer because we chose to act. I care that species across the galaxy are now questioning whether procedure should matter more than lives. I care that next time someone encounters injustice, they might remember what Earth did and find the courage to act. She turned to face him. That is our legacy. Not statues or history books, but a galaxy that is slightly better, slightly braver, slightly more willing to do what is right. That is enough for me. Park nodded slowly. Yes, that is enough. They returned to watching the stars. Two humans who had challenged the galaxy's oldest institution, and won not through superior force, but through the brutal honesty of refusing to compromise on principles that mattered. Earth's brutal response to the Galactic Council's demands had indeed left them with no response. Because when faced with beings who simply refused to negotiate about whether children deserved to be saved, what could any government say? That politics mattered more than innocence. That procedure was more important than life. The Council had no response, because there was no good response. They had been forced to choose between their system and their souls, and Earth had made it impossible to choose the system without revealing the emptiness at its core. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a child who might have died in slavery would instead grow up free, because humanity had chosen to act when action was needed most. That was Earth's true response. Not words or weapons, but the simple, brutal truth that some things are worth any cost. And in the end, the galaxy had no choice but to acknowledge that truth and change accordingly.